Lucas had always known the city was a graveyard for things long forgotten. Old buildings, broken roads, and piles of scrap from wars long past. He spent most of his time scavenging through the wreckage, hoping to find something useful, something that could make his life a little easier. It wasn't the life he dreamed of, but in a world like this, it was all he had. One day, while digging through a massive pile of trash near the outskirts of the city, Lucas noticed something unusual. Amid the old junk and ruined machines, a large object caught his eye. It was buried beneath layers of broken equipment, its shape unmistakable. It looked like some kind of armor, a soldier's exosuit, but it was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen before. Most of the exosuits from the old wars were bulky and clumsy. This one, though, looked sleek, high-tech, and almost alive. Lucas paused, wiping sweat from his brow as he crouched down next to the exo. It was heavily damaged, but there was something about it that made him curious. With a grunt, he began pulling away the debris. The suit had once been white, but the paint was chipped and faded. Dents and scorch marks covered its surface, evidence of a brutal battle. "What happened to you?" Lucas mumbled to himself as he examined the exo. His fingers traced the worn edges of the armor, marveling at its design. The technology was advanced way beyond anything he had ever seen. It was a soldier's XO, but it was more than just a suit of armor. There was something about it that felt important. He could see where the suit had been torn apart. Left arm was practically useless, its hydraulics shattered. One of the legs was twisted out of place. Despite the damage, Lucas could tell the suit's frame was still intact. He had no idea how it had ended up here, but he figured it might still be worth something. After all, parts like these were hard to come by. He decided to take a closer look. Maybe he could fix it. Lucas had spent years tinkering with broken tech. He didn't know much about high-level military exosuits, but he was good with his hands. He could make things work, even if they were broken. He had to. After a few hours of careful work, he managed to get the exo up and running. The suit's systems came online with a soft whir, and a faint green light blinked across the chest panel. Lucas stepped back, unsure of what would happen next. He was no expert, but he had fixed machines before, and this was the closest thing to a real piece of military equipment he had ever touched. But as soon as the suit activated, something strange happened. The exo's faceplate lit up, displaying a series of symbols and flashing lights. A soft voice, clear and authoritative, filled the air around Lucas. "Commander, sir? Are you there?" Lucas froze.
"What the?"
The voice came again. This time with more urgency. "Commander, please respond. We've been waiting for your orders." Lucas blinked in disbelief. His heart raced. He was used to finding old tech, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't just some broken machine, it was a high-tech exosuit with an AI inside it, one that thought he was its commander. I think you've got the wrong guy," Lucas muttered, shaking his head. The AI didn't respond immediately, and for a moment Lucas thought it might have glitched out. But then the suit's voice came again, calmer this time. "I am ready for your commands, Commander," it said. "We have an enemy to defeat. Our mission is clear. I will follow your orders." Lucas took a step back, unsure of what to do. Wasn't a soldier. Didn't know how to command anything, let alone an advanced war machine. He looked down at the exosuit, still connected to its damaged power source, and felt a wave of panic rise inside him. This was wrong. He was no commander. He was just a scavenger trying to survive. The AI seemed to sense his hesitation as the voice returned, almost soothing now. "Commander, I understand you were injured. Please allow me to assist. I will protect you." Lucas stood there for a moment, unsure of what was happening. The suit's voice was calm, almost comforting, as if it truly believed he was its commander. It was too much for him to handle. He had found this thing in a trash heap, and now it was asking him to lead it into battle. "What kind of mess have I gotten myself into?" Lucas muttered to himself. He looked at the exo, its sleek, powerful frame looming over him. He could feel the weight of its expectations, and for a moment, he wondered if he could somehow shut it down. But then, another part of him, one that had spent his life surviving by making use of what others discarded, felt a strange pull. This could be his chance. Maybe this exo could give him the power he had always wanted. Maybe, just maybe, this was his opportunity to make a difference in a broken world. He took a deep breath, his fingers brushing against the exo's cold, metallic surface. "Fine," Lucas said, his voice more confident than he felt. "I'll help you, but I'm no commander. You'll have to deal with that." The exo's voice responded immediately, almost joyfully. "Understood, Commander. I am at your service." Lucas shook his head, still not sure whether he should be terrified or excited. But one thing was clear, his life was about to change, as he walked away from the wreckage with the exo following behind him. Lucas couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the future had in store for him. He had no idea what he was getting into, but with a powerful war machine at his side, he knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. Lucas walked through the ruined city, with the exosuit trailing closely behind him. The sun had begun to set, casting a golden light over the broken buildings and twisted metal. It had been a quiet day, too quiet for his liking. He had grown used to the eerie silence that filled the air, but now, walking with the exo beside him, the silence felt different. The exo's voice had been oddly comforting. Though Lucas wasn't sure he liked the idea of being called commander. He had no military training, had no idea what he was supposed to do. The suit seemed to think he was its leader, but Lucas wasn't even sure he wanted to be a leader. He just wanted to survive. "Commander," the exo said suddenly, breaking the silence. "We have a mission. Shall we proceed?" Lucas looked up, unsure. The exo's tone was calm, almost as if it expected Lucas to know exactly what was going on. He didn't. He had no idea how to be in charge of a machine like this. But the exo was waiting for him to say something, and the longer he stayed silent, the more awkward it felt. Yeah, sure," Lucas muttered. "What mission?" The exo stopped for a moment, its large frame moving smoothly despite the damage it had taken. The voice came again, soft but urgent. "We are programmed to defend. There. Our enemy forces nearby. Shall we engage?" Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. Enemy forces. He hadn't even seen any enemies today, but then again, the world had changed a lot since the wars. There were groups of people everywhere. Some were just trying to survive, while others were looking for power. And Lucas had a feeling the idea of defending meant something very different from what he understood. "Enemy forces?" Lucas asked, raising an eyebrow. "Are you sure? I don't see anyone." The exo's head tilted slightly, almost as if it were thinking. "There are signs of movement ahead. We should investigate." Lucas wasn't sure what to do. He had spent most of his life hiding from the dangerous factions that roamed the city, avoiding any confrontation. The idea of going after potential enemies was both terrifying and thrilling. He wasn't a fighter. He was just a scavenger, all right? "Let's check it out," Lucas said, his voice shaky. He didn't have the courage to say no. If the exo wanted to investigate, then he'd have to go along. The last thing he needed was to make the AI think he wasn't following orders. They moved cautiously through the ruins. The exo's heavy footsteps muffled by the broken concrete beneath them. Lucas felt strangely protected, walking with the suit. It was as if he had a personal bodyguard, one with advanced weaponry and armor. He tried to push down the feeling of unease that was creeping up on him as they moved closer to the suspected location of the enemy forces. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The city had been silent for so long, but now he could hear faint sounds, footsteps, whispers. Someone was nearby. The exo paused, its sensors scanning the area. "Stay close, Commander," it said. "We are in enemy territory." Lucas gulped. He didn't feel like a commander. He didn't feel like anything, really. Just a guy who had found a broken machine in a pile of trash, now caught up in something much bigger than himself. They turned a corner and found a small group of people huddled around a fire. They looked like survivors, ordinary people, not soldiers or mercenaries. There were 3 of them, a man and 2 women, all of them looking tired and worn out. They were dressed in rags and hadn't noticed the exosuit yet. Lucas instinctively stepped back, but the exo took a step forward, its massive frame looming over the small group. The voice spoke again, calm and unwavering. "Commander, these individuals may be hostile. Shall I engage?" Lucas's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't what he had signed up for. These people weren't soldiers. They were just trying to survive. Just like him. He didn't want to make enemies. "No," Lucas said quickly, holding up a hand. "No. We don't need to fight them." The XO hesitated for a moment, its system processing his command. "Understood," it replied. "But be cautious, Commander. We do not know their intentions." What? Lucas slowly approached the group, hoping to make peace. The three people looked up at him, their eyes wary. They had seen enough to know that anyone who walked through the city wasn't always someone to trust. "Hey," Lucas called out, trying to sound calm. "We don't want any trouble. Just passing through." The man with the group squinted, studying him. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where'd you get that thing?" Lucas glanced over his shoulder at the XO, the massive machine standing behind him like a silent guardian. He wasn't sure how to explain it. "I found it," he said simply. It thinks I'm its commander." The man raised an eyebrow. "You found it? It's still working? That's not possible." Lucas shrugged. "Feeling awkward? I don't know how it works. I just found it in the trash and fixed it. It's not really my fault it thinks I'm its commander." The woman beside the man stood up, her hand resting on the hilt of a knife at her side. "You're a fool if you think you can control that thing," she said, her voice harsh. "That's a war machine. It doesn't care about you. It's a weapon." "I don't want to use it like that," Lucas replied, trying to keep the peace. "I'm just trying to survive." The XO's voice broke through again, more forcefully this time. "Commander, there are hostile signals nearby. We should prepare for engagement." Lucas froze, his eyes widening. He had no idea what to do. The group was watching him closely, waiting for his next move. They weren't soldiers. They weren't dangerous. But the XO seemed ready to fight, to protect him at all costs. "Please," Lucas said, his voice shaking slightly. "We don't want trouble." But the XO didn't listen. It raised its arm, the heavy weaponry built into its frame clicking into place. Lucas felt a wave of panic. He wasn't sure what was going to happen next. The woman with the knife took a step back, her eyes narrowing. "If you want to survive in this world, kid, you're going to have to learn how to control that thing. It won't listen to you unless you prove you're its leader." Lucas didn't know if that was even possible. He wasn't a leader. He didn't have the experience or the strength to command a war machine. But he did know one thing. Whatever happened, his life was never going to be the same again. Lucas walked with the exosuit by his side, his steps slow and cautious as they made their way through the abandoned city. The air was still, filled with the heavy silence of a world long forgotten. The only sound was the faint hum of the XO's internal systems, a constant reminder that something far beyond his control was now following him. It had been days since he had first activated the suit, and each day had been more unsettling than the last. The XO, once a powerful war machine, now regarded him as its commander. Lucas wasn't a soldier. He didn't know the first thing about leading or commanding. The XO wasn't asking him to be anything he wasn't. It was simply waiting for him to make decisions that would shape whatever path they followed together, and the XO was patient. He was always watching, always waiting. Lucas wasn't sure whether that was a blessing or a curse. As they walked through the city's decaying streets, Lucas tried to focus on anything other than the suit that loomed over him. He had spent his life scavenging, avoiding trouble, doing whatever it took to survive. But now, with the XO at his side, everything felt different. It was hard to ignore the power it had. It's a kind of power that could change everything in the world around him. He had never asked for any of this. He had just found the XO in a pile of junk, and now it thought he was its commander. The thought made his chest tighten. What if he couldn't handle it? What if in the end, he was no better than the other people who had used and abused the technology for their own purposes? "Commander," the XO's voice interrupted his thoughts. It had been a constant companion since Lucas had activated it, speaking to him in calm, measured tones. "There is a hostile presence ahead. I recommend we prepare for engagement. Lucas stopped in his tracks, a cold chill running down his spine. Another threat. They had already run into a few dangerous groups in the past few days, and every time, it felt like he was one bad decision away from being caught in a fight he didn't want. He didn't want trouble. He didn't want to lead an army, but the XO wasn't asking for permission. It was simply waiting for orders. "Are you sure?" Lucas asked, his voice betraying the uncertainty in his chest. He scanned the surroundings, but everything looked quiet. There was nothing out of the ordinary. No signs of life, no movement. "Affirmative," the XO responded. "There are signs of hostile activity. I have detected them. They're closing in on our position." Lucas's mind raced. He couldn't deny the XO sensors were probably right. The XO had been built for combat, designed to detect danger and protect its commander. But Lucas wasn't a commander. He was just a man who found a broken machine and tried to make sense of it all. "I don't want to fight," Lucas muttered under his breath. "I don't know what to do here. Do you want me to engage, Commander?" The XO asked, its voice steady and calm. The suit's systems clicked into place, its weaponry coming online. Lucas's heart skipped a beat. He had never been in a situation like this before. He was a scavenger, not a soldier. But the XO was ready to fight, and it was waiting for him to make the call. He didn't want to make that call, but he wasn't sure he had a choice. "Not yet," Lucas said, his voice firmer now. He wasn't sure what to do, but he knew one thing for sure. He didn't want to start a fight. "Let's see who it is first." The XO paused, its sensors scanning the area once again. "Understood," it said. "We will wait for your command, Commander." Lucas felt a sense of relief wash over him. At least the XO was giving him a little time to figure things out. He wasn't ready for an all-out battle, but he also knew that in this world, danger could be anywhere. If he waited too long, he could miss his chance to avoid a fight. As they moved through the city, the tension in the air only grew. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had survived this long by staying hidden, by avoiding attention. But now, with the XO at his side, it was impossible to stay unnoticed. The footsteps came again, louder this time. Someone was out there. He could hear them moving through the rubble, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Lucas's instincts kicked in. He wasn't just trying to stay hidden anymore. Now he had to make decisions. Lead the XO. Protect himself. The XO's voice came again, but this time it was urgent. "Commander, they are closing in. Prepare for engagement." Lucas took a deep breath. "No," he said firmly. "Let's try talking first." The XO hesitated, but then it stepped back, lowering its weapon systems. Lucas wasn't sure if it fully understood, but at least it was willing to follow his lead. They moved forward, careful but steady, their steps silent against the crumbling concrete. Lucas's eyes darted around, searching for any signs of life. He was trying to figure out who was out there. As they rounded a corner, they saw them. A group of people, looking ragged and tired, huddled around a fire. There were 5 of them, dressed in worn-out clothes, their faces hardened by the harsh realities of the world they had to live in. They didn't seem like they were looking for trouble, but Lucas knew better than to assume anything. The XO stepped forward, his towering form casting a shadow over the group. Lucas quickly raised a hand to stop it. "Hold on," he said. He didn't want to fight, not with these people, not when they didn't look like a threat. "Do you need help?" Lucas called out to the group. His voice was calm, trying to sound as non-threatening as possible. "We don't want trouble, just passing through." The leader of the group, a tall man with a scar across his face, looked up. His eyes studied Lucas for a long moment, then shifted to the XO, his expression wary. "Who are you?" the man asked, his voice rough but not unfriendly. "I'm just a guy," Lucas said. "I found this thing. It ... thinks I'm its commander." The man raised an eyebrow. "It's one hell of a companion you've got there." Lucas laughed awkwardly. "I didn't ask for it." There was a long pause. The man didn't look convinced, but he didn't make any move to attack either. The group stood there, watching them, uncertain. "All right," the man said finally, his tone softer now. "You can stay, but don't cause any trouble." Lucas nodded. "We won't." As the group set up camp for the night, Lucas couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. The XO, despite being a war machine, hadn't engaged in combat. And for once, he had made a decision that didn't lead to violence. Wasn't much, but it was a start. The Exo stood by him, waiting. Hadn't questioned his choice, but Lucas knew it was still waiting for something. It was waiting for him to take charge. Lucas sat down beside the fire, looking up at the stars. He wasn't sure where this would all lead. But for the first time since he found the Exo, he felt like he had a chance to make the right choices. Not just for himself, but for everyone around him. The days following the encounter with the group of hostile survivors were tense. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that the Exo was becoming more than just a tool or a weapon. It was a companion of sorts, always at his side, its systems constantly, scanning and processing everything around them. Even as they moved through the broken streets of the ruined city, the Exo never let its guard down. Lucas still wasn't sure how he had ended up with it. It had been just another day of scavenging, but now his life was tangled with an advanced military machine, and he had no idea what to do with it. As they walked through the ruins, Lucas couldn't stop thinking about what the Exo had said. "You are my commander." He didn't want to be anyone's commander. He wasn't ready to lead. He was just trying to survive, just trying to find something to eat, a place to sleep without worrying about the next attack. But the Exo was different. It wasn't like anything Lucas had ever encountered before. It was more than a machine. It had been made for war, for leadership, for battle. For some reason, it believed Lucas was its leader. The longer they traveled together, the more Lucas realized that the Exo wasn't just following Hamet, was waiting for him to lead. "Commander," the Exo said one evening, as they camped by a small fire. The light flickered, casting shadows across the suit's sleek, metallic body. "I have been analyzing your actions. You have shown strength in difficult situations. You are capable of leading." Lucas was tired. He hadn't slept much the past few nights, his mind always racing with thoughts of the Exo, of the battles it had fought, and of the future he wasn't prepared for. "I don't want to lead," he said quietly, staring into the fire. "I never asked for this. I'm just trying to survive. I'm not your commander." The Exo's voice was steady, unwavering. "You are more than you think. The purpose of a commander is not just to fight battles. It is to make decisions, too. Protect those under their care. You've already shown you can do this." Lucas shook his head, trying to block out the nagging thoughts in his mind. How could he be a leader? He wasn't even trained for this kind of life. He was just a scavenger who got lucky with a broken piece of technology. He had no right to be in charge of anything, let alone an advanced war machine like the Exo. "Don't understand," Lucas muttered. "I don't know how to command. I don't know how to lead an army. I don't even want to be in charge of anything." The Exo paused, its sensors worry as if it were processing his words. "I understand your hesitation, Commander. But leadership is not about perfection. It is about making the right choices when they matter most." Lucas didn't know how to respond. He wanted to argue, to tell the Exo that it was wrong. But deep down, he knew the machine was right. Leadership wasn't about being perfect. It was about making the right choices, even when you didn't have all the answers. As they traveled through the city, Lucas began to notice things about the Exo he hadn't before. The suit wasn't just a weapon, it was a part of something bigger. A soldier's mind, a warrior's heart, all contained within a machine built for battle. The Exo had once been part of a military unit fighting in wars Lucas could only imagine. And now it was following him, relying on him, waiting for him to lead. One evening, as they passed through an old military base, Lucas came across something that made his heart race. It was a ruined building, covered in layers of dust and debris, but inside, he found something that sent a chill down his spine. It was a set of old military records, forgotten in the wreckage. They had been left behind by the soldiers who had once called this place home. Lucas carefully flipped through the pages of the records, his eyes scanning the details. What he found shocked him. The Exo, the one that now followed him, had once been part of a highly trained Special Forces unit. Its commander had been a legendary figure, a hero in the eyes of the military. The unit had been sent on a top-secret mission, one that had gone horribly wrong. The Exo's original commander had been killed in the line of duty, and the entire unit had been wiped out in a brutal battle. Lucas's hands trembled as he read the records. The Exo had been a part of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. And now, it believed he was its commander. He wasn't ready for this. He didn't know how to live up to the reputation of the commander it had lost. He closed the records and stood up, looking at the Exo standing silently nearby. The machine's glowing eyes seemed to stare back at him, waiting for his next move. The weight of the Exo's history pressed down on him. He wasn't just any scavenger anymore. He was holding the legacy of a dead commander, a soldier who had sacrificed everything for a cause that had ended in failure. The Exo's voice interrupted his thoughts. Its tone softer now, almost thoughtful. "Commander, I have come to understand. You're not the man I was meant to follow, but you are the one who is here. You're the one who has the strength to carry on." Lucas swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. He was just a man, lost in a broken world, trying to survive, but the Exo's belief in him, its trust in him was overwhelming. "I'm not him," Lucas said quietly, his voice tinged with sadness. "I don't know if I can be." The Exo didn't respond immediately, but when it did, its voice was calm and steady. "You are not him, but you are you. That is enough. You are my commander, whether you accept it or not." Lucas closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He didn't feel like a leader. He didn't feel like anything special, but the Exo was right. About one thing, he was the one who was here. If he was going to survive this broken world, he would have to make the right decisions. Whether he liked it or not, he was now responsible for more than just himself. As they moved forward, Lucas couldn't help but wonder if he was ready for what was to come. He didn't have the answers, and he didn't know if he ever would. For the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of his decisions. The Exo was counting on him, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to guide him. Lucas walked with the Exo at his side, the cool wind carrying the scent of dust and decay. The city was full of ruins, broken buildings, abandoned streets, and forgotten memories. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the horizon. But Lucas couldn't shake the feeling of unease. It wasn't the quietness of the city that bothered him. It was the weight of the responsibility he now carried. The Exo was still with him, following his every move as if it was waiting for him to lead. Lucas had grown used to it by now, but the thought of being its commander still felt strange. He wasn't a leader, didn't know how to lead a machine built for war. But the Exo didn't care. It had chosen him, and there was no turning. Back as they moved deeper into the city, Lucas's mind kept returning to the records he had found in the ruined military base. The Exo's previous commander had been a hero, a soldier whose name was etched in history, someone who had been admired by many. Lucas wasn't sure how he could ever live up to that. He wasn't a soldier. He was just trying to survive. "Commander," the Exo's voice interrupted his thoughts. "I have detected an enemy presence nearby. Shall we engage?" Lucas froze. Enemy presence? He hadn't seen anyone around for miles, but he knew better than to ignore the Exo's sensors. It was designed to detect threats, and it was never wrong. But the idea of fighting again made his stomach twist. He wasn't ready for this. He didn't want to fight. "Are you sure?" Lucas asked, his voice uncertain. "I don't see anything." "Affirmative," the Exo responded. "There are signs of movement. I recommend we prepare for engagement." Lucas felt a knot tighten in his chest. It wasn't that he was scared, it was that he didn't know how to handle this. The Exo was a weapon built for war. He was just a man trying to get by. "What do you suggest we do?" Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Exo paused, its sensors scanning the area. "We will move forward cautiously. I will handle the defense. You need only give the order." Lucas didn't know if he was ready to give any order. The Exo's confidence in him was unsettling. It made him feel like he had to act, like he had to make the right decision. But the truth was, he didn't know what the right decision was. As they continued through the broken streets, the tension in the air grew heavier. Lucas's eyes scanned the surroundings, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. He could hear the faint sound of footsteps, the rustling of leaves in the wind. Someone or something was out there. The Exo remained silent, its glowing eyes locked ahead, waiting for Lucas to make a move. The weight of its expectations hung over him like a cloud, but Lucas didn't know how to lead. He didn't know what to do. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Lucas turned to see a group of figures emerging from the shadows. They were dressed in tattered clothes, their faces hardened by the harsh realities of this broken world. They were survivors, just like him, but something about them made Lucas uneasy. They didn't look like they were here to help. The XO moved forward, its massive frame blocking Lucas's path. "Commander, we are outnumbered. Should I engage?" Lucas's heart raced. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to make enemies. But the XO was right. There were too many of them. And the XO was the only thing standing between Lucas and whatever these people wanted. "Wait," Lucas said quickly. "Let's just talk to them first." The XO hesitated for a moment, its sensors worry as it analyzed the situation. "Understood, Commander?" "I will stand by." Lucas stepped forward cautiously, trying to keep his voice steady. "Hey!" he called out, his voice echoing in the quiet street. "We don't want any trouble, we're just passing through." The group stopped in their tracks, their eyes scanning him and the XO. The leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, stepped forward. "You're not from around here," he said, his voice low and threatening. "What's with the war machine?" Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. He could tell the man wasn't just curious, he was sizing them up, deciding if they were a threat. Lucas didn't know how to explain the XO, or why it was with him. He didn't even fully understand it himself. "It's not what you think," Lucas said, holding his hands out in a peaceful gesture. "I didn't ask for it. It thinks I'm its commander." The man narrowed his eyes, his hand resting on the hilt of a knife at his side. "You think you're some kind of leader? With that thing?" He glanced at the XO, which stood silently behind Lucas. "Its weapon system still primed." "I'm not a leader," Lucas said quickly, trying to defuse the situation. "I'm just a scavenger. I didn't want any of this." The XO's voice broke in, its tone calm but firm. "Commander, I have detected a high level of aggression. They are preparing to attack." Lucas's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't wanted to fight, but now he had no choice. The XO was ready for battle, and Lucas knew there was no way to stop it. He didn't want to be the one to start a fight. But the XO had already made its decision. The leader of the group took a step forward, his eyes never leaving the XO. "I don't trust you," he said. "But if you're not here to fight, then we'll let you go. For now." Lucas exhaled a sigh of relief. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaky. "Just want to get through this. We're not here to cause any trouble." The group didn't respond, but they stepped aside, allowing Lucas and the XO to pass. As they moved through the narrow streets, Lucas couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He had come close to being in a fight he didn't want. XO, for all its power, had almost dragged him into it. As they walked away, the XO's voice broke the silence. "Commander, you showed wisdom in handling the situation. Your decision was the right one." Lucas didn't feel like a commander. He didn't feel like anything. But as he glanced at the XO, standing silently beside him, he realized something. The XO wasn't just following him, it was relying on him. Whether he liked it or not, he was now responsible for more than just himself. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on him, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. Whatever happened next, he would have to make the decisions. And the XO would be there waiting for him to lead. The air felt heavier than usual, thick with the tension of unspoken words. Lucas knew they were nearing the heart of something dangerous. The city had always been a place of struggle, but now, with the XO by his side, it felt different. Machine, once a broken piece of tech in a junkyard, had become a constant companion. And yet, despite all its power, Lucas didn't know if he was ready to face the challenges ahead. The XO walked beside him, to a massive form, casting a shadow over the cracked pavement. Lucas had learned to trust it over the past few days, but there were still moments when he doubted himself. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a leader, but the XO believed he was. "Commander," the XO's voice cut through the silence, calm and steady as ever. "There is a group ahead. Their intentions are unclear." Lucas's heart skipped a beat. Another group. The tension in the air was unbearable.
Ow.
The XO was always ready, always prepared. But Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that they were getting closer to something bigger than just survival. "We need to decide," the XO continued, its sensors scanning the area. "Shall we engage?" Lucas's mind raced. He had spent so much time avoiding conflict, keeping to the shadows. He wasn't used to being in charge, especially not of something so powerful. But the XO wasn't waiting for him to make up his mind. It was waiting for a decision. "I can't," Lucas muttered under his breath. "I don't know what to do." The XO stopped, its glowing eyes focusing on him. "You are capable, Commander. You have made choices before. You will make the right one now." Lucas shook his head. "But I'm not a commander. It's just a guy who got stuck in this." The XO's voice softened, almost comforting. "Yeah, you are the one I follow, whether you accept it or not. You've already proven yourself. Trust in your ability." Lucas closed his eyes, trying to steady his nerves. The XO wasn't wrong. In the past few days, Lucas had made decisions. He had kept them both alive. He had led, whether he wanted to or not. But leading didn't come naturally to him. It felt like a weight he didn't know how to carry. They continued walking, and the group came into view, a small band of survivors. They looked like they had been through a lot. Their clothes were torn, and their faces were hardened by the harsh realities of the world they now lived in. They didn't look like they were looking for trouble, but Lucas had learned not to take chances. The XO stepped forward, its large frame standing between Lucas and the strangers. Its weapon systems clicked into place, and for a moment, Lucas felt the familiar fear rise in his chest. It was all too easy to let the XO take control, to let it fight for him. But he knew he couldn't rely on it forever. Choice. He had to decide what kind of leader he wanted to be. "I'll handle this," Lucas said, his voice steadier than he felt. He raised his hand, signaling the XO to stand down. The machine hesitated for a moment, but then it lowered its weapon, standing silently behind him. Lucas walked forward, slowly but confidently, his eyes locked on the group. He wasn't sure what they wanted, but he knew one thing for certain. They were looking for something. Just like him. "Hey!" Lucas called out, his voice louder than he intended. The group turned to face him, their eyes wary but not hostile. "Who are you?" the leader asked, a woman with dark hair and a scar across her cheek. Her hand rested on the hilt of a knife, but it wasn't drawn. She seemed cautious, but not threatening. "I'm just passing through," Lucas said, trying to keep his tone neutral. "I don't want trouble." The woman studied him for a long moment, her gaze flicking to the XO, standing a few steps behind him. "That's quite the companion you have there," she said, nodding toward the suit. "What's your business?" Lucas hesitated. He wasn't sure how much to tell them. He wasn't sure if they could be trusted. But the XO was right. They didn't look like enemies. They looked like survivors, just like him. "I found it," Lucas said simply. It thinks I'm its commander." The woman raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "You're its commander?" Lucas laughed nervously. "Not by choice." The woman's expression softened, just slightly. "Seems like you've got a lot on your plate." "I'm just trying to get by," Lucas said, shrugging. "It's trying to survive. I didn't ask for any of this." The XO spoke again, its voice cutting through the silence. "Commander, I have analyzed their movements. They're not a threat. However, their resources are limited. We could help them." Lucas turned to the XO, surprised by its suggestion. The XO had always been about defense, about fighting. Helping people wasn't something he had expected it to suggest. But maybe that was the answer. Maybe Lucas didn't have to lead by fighting. Maybe there was another way to use the XO's power. He turned back to the group, making his decision. "We can help," Lucas said, his voice more confident than before. "We've got food, supplies. If you need help, we can share." The woman looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You trust us?" "I trust that we all want the same thing," Lucas replied. "Survival. If we work together, we have a better chance." There was a long silence, and then the woman nodded. "All right, we could use the help, but we don't forget favors easily. Remember that." Lucas felt a small weight lift off his shoulders. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the right one. It was the kind of leadership he could live with, making the decision not out of force, but out of choice. As the group settled in for the night, Lucas stood by the XO, watching the stars above. The city was still broken, but for the first time, he didn't feel completely alone. He had made a choice, and it wasn't about leading a battle or commanding an army. It was about doing what was right, even if he wasn't sure he could do it alone. "Commander," the XO said, its voice soft in the quiet night. "You did well." Lucas looked at the XO, feeling a strange sense of connection. "I didn't do it alone." The XO's eyes glowed softly, a silent understanding passing between them. Lucas wasn't a commander, not in the way the XO thought. But maybe, just maybe, he could be something else, someone who could make the right choice when it mattered, and that, he thought, was enough.